In this section, I am basically continuing the concept of the interrupts from the previous lecture. So, in the previous lecture, I have explained about the concept of the interrupt mechanism. So, how the interrupt service mechanism is taking place. Now, in this section, we will be seeing that about the two type of interrupt sources, that is hardware and software interrupts, and about the nested IRQ and non-nested IRQ, about the concept of what is a context switching in interrupts, and about the basic interrupt servicing mechanism. So these are the two types of interrupt sources which can occur, that is hardware interrupts and software exceptions. Now in the case of the devices, ISR is also called as device drivers, and also exception or signal or trap handler in the case of software interrupts. Trap also we can call it, for example, the traps, they are software interrupts that is being specifically generated, say via assembly language instruction known as the interrupt instruction of the master processor. For example, the SWI, that is a software interrupt instruction 8085. So there are several types. Now if you are considering the hardware interrupt sources, the hardware interrupt sources, either it can be internal or external. So if any of the hardware component in the board it is seeking attention or it require internal service, then we can call it as an internal hardware, or external hardware. If also it may require, for example, with sending vector address. So these are the examples for the internal hardware interrupt sources and external hardware interrupt sources. So either the internal or the external, both can occur. Okay, so these are some examples. For example, like a serial port of UART, or even the timer circuits, watchdog timer. So all these are hardware components which are present in the board itself. And also external hardware interrupts with also the sending vector address. So the device is going to provide the interrupt service routine address or vector address, or typically externally on data bus after interrupt at the interrupt pin. So either it can be internal or external, that is a hardware device, it is requesting that it needs some servicing. Okay, and there can be basically two type of classification of hardware interrupts, that is maskable and non-maskable type of interrupts. So what is the basic difference between maskable and non-maskable is that in case of maskable interrupt, they are the hardware interrupts which can be delayed when a much highest priority interrupt has occurred to the processor. Whereas in case of non-maskable, the hardware cannot be delayed at all. That's it. It should be immediately processed by the processor. Okay. So when we are saying about the maskable and non-maskable interrupt, the differences you can read out. So immediate attention is needed in case of non-maskable interrupt. So that is a basic concept which is explained in first and the second points. And the maskable interrupt, it helps to handle lower priority task, and the non-maskable interrupt, it helps to handle the higher priority tasks such as the watchdog timer. And maskable interrupts used to interface with the peripheral device, whereas non-maskable emergency case, for example like power failure, smoke detector, etc. And in maskable interrupt, response time is high, but here response time should be low. And here it can be vectored or non-vectored, but non-maskable, all interrupts are going to be vectored. That is, in this type of interrupt, processor know the address of the interrupt, or processor know the address of interrupt service routine. But in the case of non-vector, the processor cannot know the address of the interrupt. Okay, that is the difference between vector and non-vector. And these are some of the examples of the maskable and non-maskable interrupt. So understand the differences between the two. For example, say if you are pressing in your system Alt, Control and Delete together. So what happens is that it is an immediate signal to the system, isn't it, when the computer is not responding. So this is also a type of, say, non-maskable interrupt. The computer, it is not responding. So immediately it is going to generate a signal. The computer must deal with it. All of it immediately it has to deal. And also in certain cases of power failure, it has to give alarm. Or even in case of watchdog timer. So all these are non-maskable interrupts. Again, the sources of interrupts can occur due to the processor hardware detecting the software error. That is, the hardware is going to detect the error, but these are the interrupts which is causing the software error, or they are connected with software. And these are some of the examples. So the processor, the hardware is going to detect the computational error. So division by zero, overflow detection, underflow detection, illegal opcode detection, etc. Then another type of pure software interrupts, again it can be classified into normal interrupts or exceptions. So in case of normal interrupts, interrupts which are caused by software instructions, that is purposefully we are writing it for creating an interrupt. We are writing within a code so that an interrupt is going to occur. So purposefully inserting in code, that is normal interrupt. But exceptions are unplanned interrupts. That is, while executing a program, it is going to encounter a problem. So in that case, it is an exception. While executing a program, we got a value which should be divided by 0. So that is an exception. So we will come now to two terminologies when dealing with software interrupts. That is, in case of software interrupt, whenever interrupt is going to occur, we say that we are throwing an exception. The system is faced with throwing an exception. And it occurs when the ISR execute, which is called as catch function. So whenever the interrupt occurs, the software interrupt or exception occurs, it is called as throwing an exception to the system, and so it is going to execute the ISR, and when the ISR execute, it is called as the catch function, as it executes on catching the exception thrown. So that is what is shown here. Say first is software interrupts. So throw event. So some event is going to happen. So on detecting an exception condition or error condition, some event is happening. So now it has to call its ISR. So that terminology is called as catching the exception. So throwing the event and catching the exception. So exception here means the interrupt. So it will run the codes for the actions to be taken for the interrupt, and then next event software interrupt it is happening. So here also same, it is going to find the source, it is going to run the code, and then it will call the function to execute at the end. First it will finish this say event A1 and then event A2, and then it is going to call to an end. That means it is going to call the basic function, the original routine which was being running. So run code set finally, which will execute when the exceptions or try block executions is finished. So the concept is that we are having two terminologies. So whenever you read or whenever you try to understand that whenever a software interrupt is going to occur, we always refer it to as throw an exception, and when ISR is executed, we say it as catch an exception. Okay, so after catching these exception only, the normal activities of the CPU it is going to resume. That is what is shown in the block diagram here. So understand that in this section I have told about the types of interrupt sources, that is hardware interrupts and software. And in hardware you can again classify as either internal or onboard or external hardware interrupt, and maskable and non-maskable. And in case of processor hardware, again detecting the software error, that is hardware detects these error, but these are the interrupts which is connected with the software that causes a software error. And the software interrupts we call them as either exceptions or traps, or they can be the one which is being introduced purposefully like the normal interrupts or traps, and one which is unintentionally coming, that is exception. That case we call it as throw a event and catch a exception. Now coming to the case of multiple interrupts. So in the case of multiple interrupts, there can be two types of interrupt service routine, that is non-nested ISR and nested ISR. So in a system with multiple interrupts, each and every interrupt may be assigned a priority level, as we have discussed in the first section of interrupt. So multiple interrupts may occur at a time. So there can be basically two type of interrupt service mechanism which is set at the CPU in case of multiple interrupts. So it can be either non-nested ISR and nested ISR. So look at the figure of the nested in form of ISR. So in this case, we have got a main function which is being executed. At that time, say a low priority interrupt serve is occurring. So interrupt request is coming. So that is why it is written interrupt request #1. That is first request. It is a low priority. At that time, another higher priority interrupt request 2 is coming. So what will it do is that interrupt service routine does is that after completing the ISR 2 only, it will go back to ISR 1, and after completing ISR 1, it will be returning back to the main function. So this is a form of nested interrupt request, that is a form of nested ISR. Okay, so this is a figure of nested ISR. It will allow the in-between routine diversion to higher priority interrupts. So these processes may also provide for auto saving of the CPU registers when ISR execution starts, and auto return of save values on return from the ISR. So this will help in fast transfer to high priority interrupt. That is, if this auto saving is allowed, the process gets faster. That is what is mentioned here. So next case is a non-nested ISR, that is it will be the just opposite of nested, that is no permission is allowed for in-between routine diversion. Whatever it is executing, after completing that only it will go to the next one. Okay, suppose if a processor it is executing, say it is started at a time of T0, it is executing a interrupt service routine and it will be finishing only at time T2. So if a high priority ISR come, it is not going to switch in between. Okay, it will be starting say only after this time T2 plus T dash, where T dash will be some switching delay time. Okay, so switching context switching time. So after completing this low priority interrupt only, this high priority interrupt will be getting processed. And this ISR, it should be coded short to enable the high priority ISR to get the attention fast. So these processors may provide auto disabling of all maskable interrupt when ISR execution start, and auto re-enabling of all the maskable interrupts on return from the ISR. That may also provide for auto saving of the CPU registers. All this is for faster transfer to the pending higher priority ISR. That is what is mentioned in the block diagram. Okay, that is what is understandable here. So we have to provide some auto saving of the CPU register when the execution is going to start, and then we have to have the auto return of the values. On returning from the ISR, it should immediately again resume its activities, and attention should be given to higher priorities. So the basic difference between nested and the non-nested interrupt request is that nested interrupt request, it permits the in-between routine diversion. So if a high priority interrupt comes, that is given importance. But in case of non-nested, this is not going to happen. Whichever it is being processing at that particular time, after completing that only, we will go to the higher priority. But we can enable the things, that is some auto saving mechanisms, etc., to deal with the higher interrupt in a faster manner. So this is the context switching concept. So context switching, it is present in all types of interrupt service routine. That is, whenever the interrupt it is going to occur. Okay, that is all about we are going to store. We know that there is a process of doing the storing and then the restoring of the program data which the processor was currently executing. Okay, so this is about the concept of context switching. So first step is what? We have to save all the registers. So the processor may be doing some process. So suddenly a interrupt occurs. So what is its first function? It has to save all the registers, and this saving it is being done to the stack. And next it has to load the next context. Next context here means the load the interrupt service routine. Then it has to readjust the stack pointer to start the new function, that is to start the new interrupt service routine. So whatever program it was being currently running, it has to save all that to the stack, and it has to load the interrupt service routine, and then we have to readjust the stack pointer to run the interrupt service routine. Now, after the last instruction, that is after execution of the interrupt service routine, that is the last instruction returned, the reverse steps are also being done. That is, after finishing the execution of interruption and on return, receiving the key instruction return, which will be the last instruction of the ISR, it has to go back to the previous process which it was executing, and we have to do again all the three steps in reverse. That is, first again it has to restore back all the registers, then load the previous program what it was doing, and again adjust the stack pointer to previous function it was executing. Okay, so it has to do again all these three steps to resume its normal activities. So these two processes together, it is called as context switching. That is, switching from the current program context to the interrupt context. That is the three steps which is being mentioned here. And again back to the switching back from the interrupt context to the normal program context or the current program context. So these two switching, it is jointly referred to as a context switching. So remember these steps. So these two switching, that is switching from the current program to the interrupt service routing, and again switching back from the interrupt service routing back to the current program context is called as context switching. And there will be a time allocated, there is a time taken to complete the context switching. That is, these two switching is called as a context switch time. And there can also be an interrupt latency. That is, whenever interrupt occurs, the service of the interrupt by executing the ISR, it may not start immediately by context switching. There may be an interval occurring between the occurrence of interrupt and start of execution of the ISR. This is called as interrupt latency. So such latency may also be present. So understand the importance of the terms in the interrupt service routine. And these two operations are being taking place whenever the context switching operation is being going on. That is, consider the first of all the push operation. Okay, the data, it is getting stored and getting retrieved from the stack memory. So whenever the interrupt occurs, the processor will have to save the current status, etc., everything to the stack memory. And the process of inserting this data to the stack, that is called as the push operation. Okay, so this for example, seeing this, this is a stack saved only one data, and this is a stack pointer. So if again another data has to be made into it or pushed into it, the stack pointer has to be incremented by 1. So it is like pushing the data to the stack. Again another data to be stored, again the stack pointer is again incremented by 1. And similarly the pop operation, that is after the ISR, it is finishing the process, it will return from the interrupt to the current program context. At that time, whatever data we have stored to the stack, it has to be retrieved. So whatever data which was previously being pushed and stored to the stack, it has to be retained. Okay, we have to get it back. So a pop operation has to be performed. So retrieving the data from the stack, it is the popping operation. So during this operation, the stack pointer, it is being getting decremented by 1. So this push and pop operation, they are very much important operation when we are considering the case of this context switching. So whenever we are switching from the current activity to the ISR and back from the ISR to the current context, this push and pop operation is taking place in the stack. And the inter-service mechanism, basically we can consider the ISR to be executed into two parts. That is, one part is a short execution time service routine which runs the critical part of the interrupt service routine. For example, if an interrupt is being occurring, so the most important, the critical or the major task has to be performed within a very short span of time. That is why we are dividing into two parts. One part you have to highlight that it is a short execution time service routine. Another part you have to highlight, that is a second level, we also call it as a thread. Okay, so the second part is a long service routine. So first part understand short service routine, second part long service routine. First part we call it as a interrupt service routine or the first level of interrupt service routine, which is going to run the most important parts or the major critical part of the ISR, and then it is going to pass a signal or message the operating system for running the remaining second part later. So the remaining part, it can be done after dealing with the other interrupts also. That is the meaning. So the first part we call it as FLISR, that is a first level ISR. It will do the device dependent handling only. For example, it does not perform data decryption of data received from the network. For example, we have to say we have inserted a pen drive, or we have inserted a hard disk in order to transfer the data. So in this case, it simply does the transfer of data to the memory buffer for the device data. And the second part, it can wait during execution of the interrupts of higher priorities. So the first level ISR, it is going to do the device dependent handling only. Okay, so it is a very short span of time. So the execution time of the service routine, it is going to be short, and it is going to inform a message to the operating system that you can do the second part later. Okay, the second part now we refer to as thread. Okay, these terminologies are important while dealing with interrupt. So that we now call it the second part as a interrupt service thread, which is a long service routine. So the operating system is going to schedule the second part, that is the interrupt service thread. Interrupt service threads are nothing but the subparts. They are the small minute process which are subparts of the actual process. Our actual process is our interrupt service routine. Okay, and the most critical part we have done in the first section, that is the first level interrupt service routine FLISR. Second part of the interrupt service thread, this is the subparts of the actual process, small minute process. So the operating system, it can schedule the IST as per its priority, and in this case it does the device independent handling, and the IST is also the software interrupted generated when it is triggered by a software interrupted signal, that is signal in FLISR. That is, by looking see this particular block diagram. So first interrupt is going to occur. Okay, so we are calling, we are throwing an exception, say, and interrupt service routine first level FLISR, and the first level is going to occur. So these may be the some operations, reading the byte, saving the byte, and it is going to signal the thread 1. This means it is going to inform the operating system that there is a thread 1 or a subpart to be performed for completing this interrupt. So it will run the remaining codes at thread 1 later. So this signal is given as a second part. So this signaling, this is a type of software interrupt. That is what is mentioned here. So it will get the signal from the first level interrupt service routine. So IST is also called as a software interrupt generated ISR. Okay, so this IST is a software interrupt which is generated by the first level interrupt service routine. So, if multiple interrupts are occurring in a system, you can understand that the operating system, it will specify according to its importance. It will do the major part or major critical parts initially, and the second parts or the subpart, we call it as the thread. It can be done later also. For understanding that concept only, this block diagram is being given. Okay, so in this section, basically we have discussed about the types of interrupts, that is source of interrupt can be either hardware or software, and the two types of nested and the non-nested interrupt mechanism, and also about the interrupt service mechanism, in which we consider the first level interrupt service routine and the second level interrupt service thread. So in this interrupt section, all these parts, all these terminologies and understanding all this process is important.